What kind of lawyer are you going to be? I don't mean what kind of law are you going to practice. I mean, are you going to play it straight? Or are you going to be colorful?
There's no point in me doing this if I can't be myself. I've been trying to be the person someone else wants me to be for I don't know how long. So, yeah, colorful, I guess.
When you look up the meaning of colorful, you'll find two distinct definitions of the adjective. One, having much or varied color, bright. Two, full of interest, lively, or exciting. The first definition describes the literal appearance of varied colors, and the second definition describes a set of traits and characteristics. A rainbow is literally colorful based on its appearance, and Jimmy McGill, in personality and as a lawyer, is lively and exciting. He's quick on his feet, scrappy, and charismatic. He's colorful. Both definitions apply to Jimmy. His colorful personality is paired with and exemplified by his colorful suits, both in Better Call Saul and in Breaking Bad. Like a peacock, Jimmy most certainly stands out in a room full of gray and blue suits due to this presentation of literal colorfulness and personality colorfulness. But the reasons Jimmy is described by others and even by himself as colorful isn't only to do with his charisma or attire, it's because Jimmy's approach to problems is morally varied. He'll typically do whatever it takes to get his desired outcome, embodying and utilizing any color of the moral rainbow, you could say. This moral variation or flexibility is also symbolized by the visual motif of placing him near electric light sources, which I analyze in another video essay. But I've never stopped to consider how his colorful attire represents this as well. But it's not just Jimmy McGill who is literally and personally colorful. His girlfriend, then turned wife, Kim Wexler, gradually becomes more colorful throughout the series. She doesn't wear any striking colors in her wardrobe like Jimmy, but she does often utilize colorful materials like sticky notes, especially when she does something outside the typical realm of expectations as a lawyer. I would argue that Jimmy and Kim's physical embodiment of multiple colors, Jimmy with his suits and Kim with her stationery, clearly represent their individual and combined inclination to violate legal or moral rules and expectations. And once they go too far, the color is visually absent from Kim's life with her move to Florida, while Jimmy doubles down as Saul Goodman, with the colorful suits and colorful methods being proliferated into Breaking Bad. Though some color does return for both of them, but only after facing the consequences of their actions. Today, we'll be analyzing the use of color variation to exemplify Jimmy and Kim's moral variation as lawyers throughout Better Call Saul. If it's your first time here, my name is Quentin. I'm a writer, a teacher, and sometimes performer. It's time yet again to analyze the complex characters and precise artistry of this series. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. Now, let's get into today's analysis. It's no secret that the overarching connection between Jimmy and Kimmy is their love of scamming, along with their mutual careers as lawyers. Although both of them possess the capacity to be colorful in their legal work, both go about it in different ways. We can see this most clearly in their childhood experiences, their scamming origin stories. It's interesting because both of these childhood flashbacks are the opening teasers to episodes where Jimmy and Kim literally and symbolically get colorful. For Jimmy, it's season 2, episode 7, Inflatable, and for Kim, it's season 6, episode 6, Axe and Grind. For the lawyer who will someday identify as criminal lawyer Saul Goodman, one of the most compelling questions about Jimmy McGill is, was his brother Chuck right about him? Was it always in Jimmy's nature to be morally colorful, or were there experiences that pushed him in that direction? You can absolutely make a case for both positions. And the best answer is probably somewhere in the middle, like the foundation of all of our personalities. We do things because of who we are, yet things happen to us that shape who we are. But it's clear that Jimmy's moral flexibility, i.e. his moral colorfulness, really started to take shape after witnessing his father getting conned as a child. Jimmy's father was, in his words, a soft touch, easily taken advantage of by people because he was too trusting and too passive. The grifter who successfully scams his father tells Jimmy,
"There are wolves and sheep in this world, kid. Figure out which one you're gonna be."
and it's at that moment Jimmy decides he'll be a wolf rather than a sheep like his father. He'll bend the rules and take advantage of people's trust to achieve the outcomes in life he desires, an outlook in direct opposition to Chuck, though he wasn't around during this time to fully comprehend how much his father was taken advantage of and what impression that could leave on someone so young and impressionable. Despite what Chuck believes, it's not as clear-cut as Jimmy is a natural delinquent who stole from the family business a little bit at a time. Nevertheless, the seeds of Jimmy's moral colorfulness were planted from this encounter. Jimmy was going to play the system since his father didn't have the gumption to play it. For the lawyer who will someday become Saul Goodman's wife, temporarily, Kim Wexler's upbringing was marked by a lot of parental instability. I touched on this already in my video essay about Kim's moral decline, but I never mentioned this specific formative experience between her and her mother. With her mother being an alcoholic and a con artist, it's very much implied that Kim was the one who parented herself and maintained responsibility in the face of her mother's criminality, walking home after it was clear her mother had been drinking, for example. Since she was forced to look after someone so irresponsible in her childhood, it's clear that that's part of the reason she's so attracted to Jimmy, since she equates that type of behavior with love subconsciously. But while that's the context of her moral colorfulness as an adult, the direct foundational experience resulted from Kim's attempt to have her mother behave like a mother. As a child, Kim steals a pair of earrings and a necklace from a local store. Getting caught and then having her mother come and collect her, she expects to be punished. You could say she's even hoping for it. After all, she did do something against the law, similar to Jimmy stealing cash from his family's store register. Kim's mom plays the outraged parent determined to punish her daughter, which prevents the store owner from calling the police. But within 20 seconds of walking to their car, Kim's mom drops the act and expresses pride towards Kim, saying, "I didn't know you had it in you," then showing Kim that she pocketed the earrings, and adding,
"Hey, relax. You got away with it."
That's when Kim realizes that getting a desired outcome in life doesn't always entail following the rules. You can bend them to your will and even get away with it. It can even be fun to break the rules, to escape from the pressure of having to perform like an adult as a child. The fact that her mother expressed approval at Kim's attempted theft further cemented that message in her impressionable mind. Kim got a taste of colorfulness, but within a circumstance where she got away with it. For Jimmy, being morally colorful presented a way to act in defiance of the system that took advantage of his father. For Kim, being morally colorful presented a way to act in defiance of the pressure to be the responsible adult at all times, so long as you don't get caught. To achieve his desired outcomes in life, Jimmy decides to bend the rules as much as he can. To achieve her desired outcomes in life, Kim decides to follow the rules, but with the ability to bend the rules if the situation calls for it, and so long as she's never caught. Now let's get to analyzing both characters' embodiment of their moral colorfulness, as exemplified by Jimmy's colorful suits and Kim's colorful stationery. Vibrant multiple colors existing all together have a long history in art and narrative media as representing vibrancy, variety, life, and excitement. Can you resist looking at a fleeting rainbow in the sky? Because I certainly can't. A great example of color representing these ideals would be the transition from sepia-toned Kansas to colorful Oz in The Wizard of Oz. In Better Call Saul, the use of color variety, multiple colors at once like you would see in a rainbow, is generally meant to represent excitement, vibrancy, and moral flexibility, what I've already referred to as moral colorfulness. Let's start with Jimmy McGill. While I still haven't completed a deep dive into the color theory of Better Call Saul, if we follow the color associations I've made in previous video essays, gray is a color typically associated with legality or mundanity in the series. Jimmy, during his time at Davis and Maine, attempts to be a straight-edge lawyer as much as he can, as represented by his wearing of gray suits throughout the majority of his time there. However, once he realizes he won't be able to keep his bonus if he quits, Jimmy thinks of another way to maintain his bonus and still get out of there so he can open up a private practice with Kim. In Season 2, Episode 7, Inflatable, he gets inspiration from an inflatable man as he drives by, a stand-in for his colorful self he's been forced to reel in, so as to fit in with the stiff legal world. In the very next scene, Jimmy removes all of the gray from his closet and replaces it with a variety of colored shirts: red, orange, yellow, green, medium blue, light blue, and dark blue. Walking into Davis and Maine the next day, Jimmy is standing out like he never has before, wearing a salmon-colored pink suit as he shakes hands with a client from a funeral home. Throughout the rest of this signature Better Call Saul montage, Jimmy, alternating between different brightly colored suits, orchestrates a series of, shall we say, colorful antics to get himself fired. It begins with the inappropriate attire, then progresses in cringiness by obnoxiously using a juicer in the office, being a bit racist towards the cleaning department, not flushing the toilet, and finally, playing the bagpipes in his office. Cliff Main deduces what Jimmy is trying to do, not only because of the severe obnoxiousness, but the fact that he's behaving colorfully while wearing colorful suits. He succeeds in manipulating Cliff into firing him, not for cause, but for being an overall nuisance to the firm. Thus, Jimmy's colorful antics cheated the system once again. If Jimmy can use manipulation, trickery, and scamming to obtain a desired outcome, he most certainly will, as exemplified by the variety of suit colors. This leads us into Jimmy professing his desire to partner with Kim in a private practice together. At this point in the series, Kim doesn't completely share in Jimmy's moral flexibility, but she's certainly on her way. She tolerates and enables his overt colorfulness by turning a blind eye and eventually becoming an active participant. She directly questions him about the type of lawyer he's going to be.
Are you gonna play it straight? Or are you gonna be colorful?
At first, Jimmy lies to her and to himself, but quickly he's honest that he'll only do it if he can be himself. Kim, still very reluctant, keeps her interview with Schweikart and Coakley, but afterwards she proposes an alternative arrangement. Not Wexler McGill, but Wexler and McGill. Two different practices under the same roof. Kim, as she did with her mother, tries to rein in Jimmy's colorfulness at this point in her arc. Though by sharing an office with him, knowing full well he doesn't intend on being a straight-edge lawyer, she is enabling his colorfulness. If we look to the symbolism of color variety first exemplified in Jimmy's suits, this rainbow painted on the wall in their shared law office tells us that Jimmy is indeed going to be a morally colorful lawyer, but eventually the rainbow is painted over and replaced by the Wexler and McGill logo in Season 3. I personally interpret this as a visual representation of Kim reining in Jimmy's moral colorfulness. Although she's willing to somewhat turn a blind eye and share an office with him, she's not willing to be his law partner. Thus, his colorfulness is painted over and replaced by the yellow and light blue of their office logo. But just as this office isn't able to sustain itself, partly due to Kim's overworking herself on Mesa Verde on behalf of Jimmy, Kim's avoidance of her moral colorfulness can no longer be sustained. She finds herself in several situations where behaving colorfully seems like the right thing and the fun thing to do. Like other characters in the series associated with the legal world, Kim primarily wears different shades of blue, gray, and occasionally black early in the series. But similar to Jimmy, Season 2 is where we get our first taste of her colorfulness. Though not quite the same type of colorfulness we'll see from her later on in the series. In Season 2, Episode 5, Rebecca, Kim gathers a series of colorful sticky notes to cold call potential clients for HHM as a way to end her document review punishment. As I pointed out in my previous video essay on Kim, these colorful sticky notes offer both a connection and a contrast to Jimmy's colorful antics. While not morally colorful per se, Kim is still thinking outside the box a bit in order to end her unfair punishment. She works late, sacrifices her lunch hour, and probably loses some sleep while not getting anywhere for quite a while, as seen in the way she's constantly scribbling out names and throwing away the sticky notes. She still completes her document work and makes the time to cold call, even though it's technically work she doesn't have to do. That's pretty colorful if you ask me. Most of us would just accept our demotion and then quietly quit eventually. Or maybe that's just me. And you could argue it breaks office policy by staying late and performing excessive client outreach when all that's expected of her is to review these sad, boring documents. So in a sense, Kim, like Jimmy intentionally getting himself fired, is bending the rules of her workplace to obtain her desired outcome, utilizing colorful stationery in contrast to Jimmy's colorful attire. But this act is nowhere near as morally flexible as Jimmy at Davis and Maine. Kim is the one who will hold herself back, never getting too colorful. But guess what? Kim's use of multicolored stationery returns in Season 4, Episode 7, Something Stupid. And this time, it's without a doubt for the purposes of morally colorful actions. To save Huel from going to prison for unintentionally assaulting a police officer, Kim buys an excessive amount of white paper, pink paper, colorful markers, and other types of stationery material to create a fake letter-writing campaign in support of Huel. Jimmy takes all this stationery and pays other travelers on the bus to Coushatta, Louisiana to write these fake letters. The last time we saw Kim utilize any colorful stationery were the cold calls at HHM. Now we see her utilizing more than simple sticky notes. Now it's an entire fake campaign to pressure Suzanne Erickson into reducing Huel's sentence. The rainbow of stationery has dramatically increased since the stakes of her rule bending have increased. This is most certainly morally colorful, risking disbarment to scam the legal system. Since it was primarily Kim's Kim's idea, you could say this is the first time since she was a child that she's actively broken the law to obtain a desired outcome. And of course, she didn't get caught. She may have been selective about when to unleash this moral flexibility in the past, but as we see in episode 9, Vidazen, Kim finds another justification to scam in order to get Mesa Verde, a 13% bigger branch in Texas than originally planned, once again with Jimmy's help. While Kim still doesn't want to go as far as making moral colorfulness her entire way of conducting herself as a lawyer, she finds yet another situation where bending the rules is justifiable, so long as her tracks are carefully covered. And this, as we probably all know, is the Howard scam. In Season 6, Episode 3, Rock and Hard Place, the colorful sticky notes make a comeback for Kim, but this time for far more nefarious reasons. It's ironic because the last time we saw Kim use this type of stationery was when she attempted to please Howard Hamlin after he punished her. Now these sticky notes are utilized to plan an elaborate con to ruin his reputation and force an early settlement of Sandpiper Crossing, and to reconnect with Jimmy. There's no crumpling up of the sticky notes this time, rather they're carefully placed and kept track of on the back of a painting in Kim's apartment. It's also throughout this season where we see Jimmy constantly in his colorful Saul Goodman attire. Both of them are now equally morally colorful, Jimmy in his attire and Kim in her selection of stationery. Kim has truly reached the peak of her moral colorfulness by utilizing vibrant stationery to ruin a person's reputation rather than cold call or manipulate a district attorney. She is breaking moral/legal rules, but this time she expects to be caught by Howard, which does happen, but she knows the con against him is too complex and far-fetched for anyone to truly believe him. If Kim can use manipulation, trickery, and scamming to obtain a desired outcome, and if there's little chance she'll face consequences, then she will, as exemplified by the variety of stationery colors. But the color ends up fading for both of them as a result of the Howard scam. Following the symbolism of color variation in relation to Jimmy McGill and Kim Wexler, the opening teaser of Season 6, Episode 1, Wine and Roses, features a beautiful slow-motion close-up of Saul Goodman's vibrant, colorfully patterned ties being collected in a box. At first the color is gone, but as the ties continue to overlap each other, the color gradually fades in. I would assume the Citizen Kane-inspired montage takes place sometime after Saul has gone into hiding as Gene Takovic. The color fading into these ties represents Jimmy's maintenance of his moral colorfulness, doubling down as Saul Goodman even after Howard's murder and his breakup with Kim, while Kim drains all the moral colorfulness and color in general from her life, as we witness in Season 6, Episode 12, Waterworks, with her mundane life in Florida. By the end of the series, both characters are faced with the consequences of their scamming, but Jimmy had continued as Saul Goodman while Kim left. The moral colorfulness remained for Jimmy while it faded away for Kim, and this points back to the difference in their attitude towards moral flexibility. Jimmy will do whatever it takes, while Kim can hold herself back if she really needs to. Some color does peek through in the series finale Saul Gone, during their in-person reunion after 6 years. The ember of the lit cigarette they share is in color, while the rest of their world remains in black and white. With both of them now facing the consequences of their moral colorfulness together and as individual people, the flame between them can safely ignite and bring a hint of color back to their lives. Because I think deep down, Jimmy and Kim's love of scamming stems from a desire to be accepted in a world where they felt invisible. Color variation not only represents moral variation, but vibrancy, excitement, and life. Jimmy as the delinquent brother standing in the morally sound shadow of Chuck McGill, and Kim as the overly responsible daughter under the pressure of, and lack of proper guidance from, her morally unsound mother. Jimmy and Kim were fighting against a system of law and order they got into in order to prove their childhood experiences wrong. Jimmy thinking, I can make my brother proud and do what he does, and Kim thinking, I can help people like my mother so they don't have to make the choices my mother put me through. Scamming was a misguided way to bring some color into their black and white existence. After everything, I like to think they can bring color into their lives in other ways, now that they face the consequences of what happens when they each get too morally colorful. Thank you so much for watching. My Patreon is linked below if you want to support me in making these videos and get some perks. Or hey, why not throw me a tip by clicking on the 3 dots below? Or become a member of the channel. You can earn some badges and get early access to videos like this one. Any amount you can afford helps a lot. Thank you. A special shout out to our newest channel members, Coral Etkin and Adam S. Great to have you and thanks for the support. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. See you soon.